Hey guys, welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andrew Seegers, and we're again joined by Derek Binner to talk about all the items, both new and old, announced for Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS. So let's get right into it. Alright Derek, so as you know as well as I do, there's been a ton of Smash news recently, and as part of that, you know, they showed off a bunch of new items, both in the Direct last week, I think. I can't even keep track anymore of how much time has passed. But they've also announced a whole bunch more in like hundreds of screenshots that they released shortly after the Direct. So I figured we'd go through all the items that they've shown off, both the new ones and old ones, and just talk about how we think they might work and our overall impression. So let's start off showing the brand new items to the game. They've never appeared in any Smash Bros. Game before, and let's start with the Mario ones. And one of the big ones they showed off was the POW Block, and it appears in the footage that you can pick it up and you'll throw it at the ground. It'll cause any opponent on the ground to fly into the air. It actually works just like the one in the Mario Brothers stage from Brawl, except you can carry it around and throw it, as opposed to it being, a part of the stage and being suspended in air. I personally think this item looks awesome. I've always been a fan of the POW Blocks whenever they've appeared before, even including the original Smash Brothers, again as a stage hazard. And I think it looks like a lot of fun. What do you think?
No, I totally agree. I mean, when I first saw it, it just looks powerful, and there's something iconic about the POW Block. It just shows devastation whenever you see it. And we can also see that it looks like it has three uses, just like the classic POW Blocks from before.
Right.
What seems very interesting about it is that there is a definite risk reward system, because you say it damages the opponents, and that's what we see in the trailer and the Direct. But it looks like if you don't jump when you throw it, it'll probably affect you as well, because Mario jumps every time he throws that thing and make sure he's not on the ground. So I think that might be the only way to escape its damage, is just if you're in the air when it lands.
That's a really interesting idea. I think you're right, because in the previous games when they appeared as part of the stage, you had to jump to reach them, so that was never a concern of yours. But now that you can actually activate it at any time, it makes perfect sense that you'd want to be in the air when you do it. Yeah, I think this item could be a lot of fun, and it has the potential to be used incorrectly and screw yourself over in the process. Next up, we have the Boomerang, presumably from Super Mario 3D World and 3D Land. Now, we only get a screenshot of it, and as far as I can tell, we really have no idea how it's going to work. And it's interesting, though, because it's also appearing in Mario Kart, in Mario Kart 8. And in that game, you actually get three uses of it. You can throw it 3 times, it goes really far, takes out anything in its path, when it heads out and when it comes back. And then, once it comes back, you can throw it 2 more times. So I have a feeling it might work similar here. I mean, obviously it's a boomerang, so it's going to come back to you. And I'm guessing you'll be able to use it, at least 3 times, if not more. The Smash items do have a tendency to stick around for a while. So you might be able to get quite a few uses out of it, but what do you think, Derek?
I wasn't sure how to feel about it at first, because it's just, boomerang. It's not as exciting as some other items.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that Link already has a boomerang.
Actually, that's a really good point. That's actually probably a really good sign of how it's going to work. Look at Link's boomerang.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it'll steal items as well. I mean, I'm not sure. I think otherwise you probably have a pretty good grasp of how it works. Not too much to say about it, and you can almost say the same about the Super Leaf, which is the next item we see here from Mario Brothers.
Right.
Which basically just awards whoever picks it up a raccoon tail and the ears. Of course, this is from Super Mario Brothers 3. In that one, you could get a running start and fly, or sort of slow your descent and sort of glide down, or use it as like a offensive maneuver by doing a little spin. They could do all 3 here, but what's most likely here for you?
I have a feeling they would lean toward it being more of a single-purpose item as opposed to bringing in all his abilities. But I have a feeling it's going to be used more, maybe for his tail attack. So maybe every time you turn around, he whips his tail around, and that damages anyone nearby. Basically giving you a free hit in a greater range than you already have. And I can see that being kind of interesting in that case.
Mm-hmm.
No, I do think it's interesting that it's referencing Mario 3 directly, or New Super Mario Bros. 2 as well, as opposed to 3D Land or 3D World, both of those games, where it turned you into a Tanuki instead of the raccoon. So I don't know, that's just kind of an odd little thing they added, and that actually might add support for the fact that it allows you to fly.
I think the big reason the Tanuki suit did not make an appearance here, like whenever you grab the Super Leaf, is probably more of a graphical reason, because then you'd have to find out a way to get every single character in the game into a Tanuki suit.
That'd be awesome. Like, I mean, they already do that with Kirby, right? You know, with all those powers. Go the distance. I want to see Tanuki Ganondorf. Make that happen.
Oh God, that would be interesting. The only other thing I could think of with this is, like, as you were saying, you could turn around and you know, do a whip attack with your tail. Maybe you can also use it as a reflector for items. Like, you do that turn and the tail hits the item that's coming at you and it sends it right back.
Oh, like Mario's cape, basically.
Exactly.
That'd be kind of cool. If they do that, it'd be interesting in how they're bringing, presumably, several of these innate character traits, like the boomerang, into actual attacks, or rather into actual items that anyone can use. Yeah, it's all very interesting. Now, speaking of traits that, you know, other characters can use, the fire bar is another item coming from Mario, and it, of course, you know, is similar to like a sword item from other characters. But this one's kind of interesting in that it very clearly has only 5 uses. So each time you use it, one of the little fireballs disappears, and it reduces in length, making it a worse and worse item the more you use it. Which is, I mean, when I saw that in the direct, I'm like, that's awesome. Like, it's such a creative use of that thing. It's pretty famous in the Mario games. It's something you never really think about either. It's like you come across a fire bar, it's like, yeah, there it is. It's, you know, kind of annoying, and then you move on. You never think about it again. So it's cool to see them, you know, repurposing it, even going so far as having the block that they are attached to being basically the handle you hold on to. I think it's just really, really clever.
It's probably one of the most clever items we've seen so far, and just how they took a stage hazard and made it into an item and just made it work for it. And it's, you know, interesting that every time you successfully land an attack, it shortens, it becomes worse. And I don't know, there's something oddly cool about it. Even though what's kind of funny is, like, we both really like this item. But when you compare it to other items, it's not quite as useful because it gets worse as you use it.
Yeah, it is unique in that respect, at least as far as I can remember offhand. I can't think of any other item offhand that actively gets worse. I mean, some items even disappear after a certain amount of uses, but we've never seen like an item deteriorate in real time. Yeah, so it's definitely unusual. Now, speaking of stage hazards that have become items, we get a look at a bullet bill. And now, the thing is, we're not entirely sure if it's actually an item or an assist trophy, but for the purpose of this conversation, we'll be treating it as an item. If that is the case, I'm wondering, is it like actually an item that you throw as a projectile? Like basically having him either, you know, fire off in a straight line toward your opponent, or maybe even home in on your opponent? Or does it turn you into bullet bill like in Mario Kart and have you fly around as like this super dangerous hazard?
Either one would be kind of cool. I personally think it'll probably work like almost like a bomb, where you just toss it out, and in this case, it flies and goes straight forward and blows up or explodes whenever it hits somebody. Or maybe it could even just keep damaging them as it like goes through them.
Yeah, I think your idea there makes perfect sense. Having basically being an aerial bomb, because the bombs you walk along on the ground. Whereas with a bullet bill, maybe wherever you throw it on is the trajectory it sticks to. And we've even seen bullet bills in the Smash games before, in Subspace Emissary. So it makes sense just to have them, you know, again, in a very similar role, but as an actual item. I think it'll be pretty cool. Now, even though that one may not be referencing Mario Kart, this next one almost definitely is, being the spiky blue shell, of course, from pretty much every Mario Kart game. It was almost pretty easy to overlook in the Direct. A lot of people didn't even see it watching it, even though it's actually in, you know, on screen for maybe 5 or 6 seconds. And I went through in our analysis and, you know, suggested how it might work. There's so many ways to take it. It's impossible to tell how it's going to work for sure. In the Direct, we just see it hovering. We see it hovering over Mario for a few seconds before flying into the air, then dropping down on the Mario's spikes first. And it looks like the Mario dodges out of the way just in time, so you don't actually see what it does fully either. So there's a lot of ways in which to interpret this. My idea was that maybe it targets whoever's in first, or whoever has the lowest amount of damage at that point, and then it hovers over them for a few seconds before attacking. So what are your thoughts on that portion of the leaf, Derek? How do you think this thing might work initially? Do you think it'll attack whoever's in first, or do you think maybe you throw it and whoever it hits is who it targets?
You know, it seems odd to have it attack whoever's in first, but that is the role of the blue shell. The interesting thing about that, though, is you have to sort of take into account which type of game you're playing. If you're playing a stock battle, obviously you look at the lives and whoever has the most lives, and then who has all. If it's tied, you have whoever has the least percentage. Or if it's a time battle, you got to look at who has the most kills and stuff. So it's if it is based on whoever's in first, it varies from game to game. Based on what style you're playing in. So I think it makes sense to work like that, but I have a feeling it might just work kind of like how you your second suggestion, where it hits and then it targets.
That would be the simplest solution. I mean, the simplest implementation of it. And I think it does make sense on that level. The
question I have for it is when it goes to hit you, because as you said, we didn't see it hit Mario, does it explode like most other blue shells?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know. It would make sense for it to explode, but that's how it's historically worked in the games. But we saw no sign of that in the Direct, even though, again, it could just be because Mario dodged the attack. Now, the interesting thing to me is the fact that it turns upside down to hit Mario, which I don't think is something they do in the Mario Kart games, but I didn't go through to double check how exactly they landed. It almost to me suggests, like, I'm almost thinking it might be a meteor smash, basically. Like, if you're in the air, it just comes, it just lands on you, just plummets you into the ground. So I'm thinking maybe the idea behind it is, like, since it hovers over Mario for several seconds, that's Sonic's chance in that clip to get Mario off the platform, so that way the blue shell will attack and, force him down as a KO.
It makes sense to work like that. There's a lot of possibilities and things we can get it to do. But I think the key that everybody picked up on, and the thing that just people are like, oh, thank God, is the fact that you can dodge it.
Right. Which is something you can't really do in Mario Kart. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not a sure hit item. You can dodge out of the way, make it ineffective. So it actually, what's kind of funny is that it's more balanced here than it is in Mario Kart. Go figure.
That's a pretty awesome way of putting it. Now, another series represented by a ton of new items is Zelda. And we got to look at a fair amount of them here. So one of the items shown off was a fairy in a bottle, which we saw before and talked about in one of our previous discussions, but now we get a better idea of how it's going to work. And it looks like you'll just pick it up and it'll instantly heal you, kind of like the heart container or the M-Tomato. And based on Sakurai's previous comments, it sounded like it'll be able to heal you even over 100%. Which would make it the best healing item in the game, because I believe the previous best one, being the heart container, could only heal 100%. So this seems like it's going to be the item to look out for when it appears.
Before, when we saw the fairy in the bottle, we were like, okay, there's something special about this, is the fact that it's in the bottle. We were wondering if you could maybe throw it and then have the fairy come immediately back to you, so you damage your opponents, but it also comes back to you and heals you a little bit,
right?
Or something to that effect. But as you said, I mean, as soon as it picks up, the fairy heals you and you can go on. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's interesting they added something that could heal more than the heart container. I find it a little odd that they chose the fairy, because I don't believe it makes more sense to me that the fairy heals 100% and the heart container does full health or something, because that's what it does in the games. But it quibbles here and there. It's not a big deal. Really, not much else to say about it. It's just it's a fairy. It's a healing item.
But one that we may have more to say about is the Bombchu, which we can see in the footage Toon Link using to taunt Marth with by having the Bombchu chase him up at the wall. So it basically looks to me like a more mobile bomb, like a faster, more mobile bomb, where walls are no longer a factor. This guy will just keep on going. Now in the footage, it looks like it detonates when it hits Marth, but in the Zelda games, it would detonate based on time as well. So I'm guessing that's going to be the same factor here, which again is just like the bomb too. Now I wonder if can you just throw it at someone, have it detonate in the air on them, or will it have to chase someone on the ground before it detonates?
Hard to say. It's I guess if you hit them right away, it'll probably blow up right away, just like that. I'm not sure if it quite has the kick of the bomb, but it definitely works like the hothead, which basically kept going around any platform it's on and just kept circling.
That's
and
true.
The Bombchu seems to work the same here, except rather than just doing a little bit of damage, it's going to explode.
Right.
So it could be interesting. Now, the one we got a little bit of a look at in the trailer, but still I don't quite get how we're going to, you get the best use out of it, is the Beetle. Which is straight out of Skyward Sword and basically grabs an opponent and lifts him into the air. Now, theoretically, that would lift them up high enough that they would just get off-screened and taken out that way. But it seems odd that, I'm assuming there has to be a way for whoever gets caught in it to get out of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe by wiggling the control stick. Like, it could function as a grab, basically. Like a grab being done by an item, where you can escape by, you know, just mashing on a control stick. That's the only thing I can think of, because we do see Fox go pretty high in that clip. And unfortunately, the clip ends before we see if Fox escapes or not. So, because if not, that seems like it would be a really powerful weapon. If it just, like, you know, just grabs you and just, you know, just runs you off screen into a KO. That'd be a super good weapon.
Especially with the smaller stages in there. Maybe it goes forward and grabs whoever it's in the way, so maybe it's, of course, possible to dodge.
Right.
And you're just stuck in that thing until it decides to disappear or drop or run out of its energy or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely works, I think, a little bit different than... Well, I think that was one of our theories. One of my original ideas for it was I was kind of hoping it would, like, hold you in place, maybe. Like, you know, like, basically fly you away slower so people can just beat on you while you're in the air.
Yeah, maybe it could still happen if somebody is... there's a third player who wants to hit you while you're running out.
Yeah, that's true.
Getting carried up.
Now, speaking of items that fly, we can see that cuckoos will also appear here as well from, you know, again, the Zelda games. We don't know for sure if it's an item or an assist trophy, but again, for the purpose of this discussion, we'll treat it as an item. Now, in that case, my guess would be it just appears, walks around, and then whoever has the misfortune of daring to attack it draws a wrath of the cuckoo. So I could see this being a pretty awesome weapon, because I picture it as, you know, someone picking it up, you know, not dealing damage to it in the process, and then throwing it at an opponent, hoping that they attack it, you know, thereby causing the cuckoos to go after them.
Now, I think the really fun thing that you could do, like, let's say you pick up the cuckoo and you're getting ready to use it, but somebody decides to throw a smart bomb at you and you get caught up in the explosion. So the cuckoo gets hit as well.
Ooh.
Doesn't that mean they'll immediately go after the guy that threw the smart bomb?
I would think so. That'd be pretty vicious.
Yeah, same. It'd be kind of fun. So I'm kind of hoping it does work more as an item than an assist trophy, just because of the devilishness that you can really use with it.
Now, do you think assuming you can't pick up the cuckoos, do you think they'll help you, like, do you think you can float in place with them too, like in Zelda, where you fall back to the ground slower than you would normally?
Yeah, I think I can see that kind of happening. You jump up and you sort of drift down and go about that.
Now, another item that we didn't see in the direct itself is a treasure chest from Zelda, again, which is a little bit odd, because we already have a bunch of, like, you know, box-type items in this game. So, do you think it'll function like those, where it just spawns items, or do you think it'll have something else to it, where I don't know what the purpose a treasure chest could use or could have?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's especially odd that they chose the treasure chest from Zelda. At least we think it's from Zelda, because we have the treasure boxes from Kid Icarus popping up in Smash Run, and these are two very different designs. As far as the treasure chest itself, I'm not sure. I mean, the only thing I can really think of is that it contains other items, and that's really about it. But maybe only like a single item. But I'm not sure. I really have no idea how it would, you know, be different from the other containers that we have in Smash Brothers.
You got me. But so let's move on to some new items that do bring something new to Smash Brothers, being the Kid Icarus items. And starting off, we have the back shield, which we actually get to see in motion in the game. And just like in Kid Icarus Uprising, it seems to function the exact same, where it's a shield that stays right behind you, and it will block incoming projectiles. Specifically, I think we see it block Lucario's, like, energy ball attack. So it looks like it'll be like a really powerful weapon.
The thing I found interesting about it is that in another picture, we see it in front of Samus, Zero Suit Samus, and rather than behind her. So, of course, characters can go, look left and right, so the back shield has to compensate. But there might be a bit of a delay between it shifting those sides. So I'm quite sure. So there might be even that way to get a shot in on them.
Yeah, that could help balance it. And I also wonder too if your opponents will be able to destroy it, like if it has basically its own HP meter, and if it takes too many hits, it just goes away. Next up, we had the Orc Club, which we've talked about before as well. And as we talked about then, based on Sakurai's comments, it'll be able to shoot out little tornadoes based on charging it up. So it works functionally just as it did in Kid Icarus Uprising, which I think looks pretty cool.
compared to some of the other new items, it just seems pretty standard, but still fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually closest to like the Kirby Star Rod or something, where it's both like a melee weapon and a projectile at the same time. Only this time the tornado is a lot bigger. So I do wonder like how effective it's going to be, but the Star Rod could be a pretty nasty weapon, like if you're on the opposing end of it. I do wonder that's going to be the case here too. Now, one weapon that does look particularly nasty to get caught up in is the X-Bomb. In fact, DDD's face in one of these pictures is just hilarious based on what's happening to him during it. And in this case, it just forms an X, and I think, does it move around at all, do you remember? Or
I don't think it moves around, but what's interesting about it is that I originally thought that the X-Bomb would always form an X wherever it landed. That's not the case. It'll actually rotate as well. So whatever way the X is facing, that's the way it'll go. So it actually, in one of the screenshots, we can see it making a plus sign. So, you know, you got to really pay attention to which way it's facing when it goes off if you actually want to dodge it. So it looks pretty cool and really devastating.
Now, another weapon that looks like it'll be kind of devastating is the drill arm. Because it looks like it's just going to drill right into you, just like it does in Uprising. Now, we don't actually see this in motion either. But it looks like you'll be able to, you know, fire it off, and if it hits someone, it's going to just keep drilling into them for a little while to keep inflicting damage. You know, at least if it works like it does in Kid Icarus. And then after that, it looks like Diddy even holds onto the base of the weapon, you know, afterward, which makes me think he'll be able to use it as a projectile, or maybe even worse, maybe he can pick up the drill arm again and re-drill it in someone else.
Yeah, that'd be kind of crazy if it shot out and then even returned back to its another use.
Right.
If you actually hold on to it.
Kind of like Thor's hammer or something just comes right back to him.
Oh god, wouldn't that be crazy? I mean, that's kind of how it worked in the actual Kid Icarus Uprising. Right. So it was actually better at long range than close range. It's not really a weapon that you bash people with. You really do shoot it at people.
Yeah.
Which makes it seem kind of different just because you do hold on to the base like that.
Right.
I mean, it's a very different item, and I guess the best you can compare it to is Drill Dozer, or whatever her name was from Brawl. It was an assist trophy, the little girl riding around in the drill. Maybe it might work something like that as far as like the type of damage it does.
Yeah, you could be right. Next up, we have the Killer Eye, which in Kid Icarus Uprising was a mobile turret. So you could pick it up, move it around, and it would just shoot, you know, I think laser blasts from its eye. So this would make it kind of a pretty unique weapon in Smash Brothers. I don't think we've seen anything quite like this, where you can, you know, presumably move it around and have it just shoot lasers in a set place. So I can imagine, like, if you're Fox, just dropping that weapon somewhere, then going to another platform and just shooting your own lasers, basically like creating this tiered set of like, you know, projectiles, which would just be pretty nasty to deal with, I think.
Oh yeah, you can even get even more devastating. You could have, like, you know, it gets fired at you and you put up the reflector and it gets sent back at whoever's fired it at you, and it'd be all kinds of fun.
Right.
No, this is a very unique item. We've never really had a turret before. We've had gun weapons, we've had traps, but nothing that actually fires whenever somebody gets close. Mm-hmm. So what I'm wondering is, how close do you need to be for this thing to activate? Like, will we be able to see its range, or will it be sort of invisible and you just, like, you see it there and you're like, well, I don't want to get close to that.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good question. Like, will it have a range? Like, or is it just purely line of sight based? Like, if you're in front of it at any point, then it just starts firing at you, or will it have a, you know, limitation?
That's a good question. I mean, it might be, like, if it does have just a line of sight. I mean, imagine setting it up in Palutena's temple on one side and two guys are fighting on the other side and they happen to cross into it. All of a sudden, it just starts blasting away at them. That'd be devastating, really.
Yeah, totally would be. So that covers it for all the Kid Icarus items, but now we have a bunch of other items that, you know, can't really be grouped together in any way. So first up of those is the Master Ball, which basically is like a Pokeball, except it only spawns rare and legendary Pokemon. So by design, you know, legendary Pokemon are pretty powerful, so this seems like it's going to be a item you're going to want to watch out for when it appears. Like, if you see, you know, opponent, like, Pokeballs already are something you kind of want to avoid if your opponent drops one. But I can see the Master Ball being something you definitely want to avoid, because that's basically a guarantee that there's going to be a pretty nasty Pokemon coming out of there.
I think we talked about this before, right? The Pokeball was always something, like, I saw one and I'm going for it. Like, more than any other item, it's just the fun of seeing what's going to come out of it. Now you're seeing a Master Ball, and that's guaranteed massive damage thanks to a legendary Pokemon's attack. That's going to be an even bigger fight for it. It's interesting they decided to go this route to make legendaries that much more special when they're coming out of the Pokeballs or Master Balls or whichever. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree. Now, another item that appears as if it may spawn something is the Special Flag. And I say that because we can also see Galaga aliens appear in another screenshot. And I have a feeling the two might be connected, as they're both based on Namco games. The special flag is something that appeared in a lot of older Namco games, and even some more recent ones, and the, Galaga aliens being from Galaga. So I have a feeling the two are going to be connected. So I wonder if the flag might spawn those, if not spawn, more general or other Namco enemies as well, basically serving as a Namco version of the assist trophy. So instead of, spawning Nintendo characters, it would spawn, Namco ones. What are your thoughts, though, on that?
That's the big question here. Like, when everybody saw the Galaga aliens, you kind of figured how that's going to work. I mean, we've had other items that spawn, many little guys coming at you and attacking you. We got the Advance Wars soldiers. We have, as far as Pokemon back in the day, we had, Beedrill and the Unknown and that type of stuff, where it's just a lot of little guys spawning across the screen, and that's pretty much how Galaga aliens would work. The special flag, we have no idea how this thing might work, because it really is just a collectible in its original games. It just either gives points or it's just, hey, this is here. So we tossed about a bunch of ideas, like maybe it restores health, or the whole summoning thing, which, if it is a summoning thing, I guess the idea is that it would basically be a Namco-specific assist trophy, which would be wholly unique, that Namco would get their own assist trophy, which actually might say stuff against one of their characters appearing. So maybe if they get their own assist trophy for multiple games, maybe they just don't get a character.
I don't know, I kind of feel like the fact that Namco is being referenced here directly supports the idea that there would be a character here. Because why bother otherwise? I mean, don't get me wrong, regardless, it would be cool to see. I mean, maybe that's their, you could be right, maybe that's their thought. That, hey, this is how we can appease, the Namco references, is by making an assist trophy for them and give them a few in-game references. But I feel like if they're doing that, they kind of need a deeper connection to the game itself. Like, you wouldn't see an assist trophy from Metal Gear with having a Metal Gear character. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
it almost seems too divorced, even though Namco is the developer of the game. Not everyone is going to know that innately, so it seems like kind of a weird connection to make if you don't have a character from Namco being here.
It would be strange, but maybe like Namco is like, yeah, we could have one of our characters in there, but what can we do to get more of our characters in there, get people to see more of our franchises? That's sort of my thought process of why they might go that route rather than just a character. Or, as you could say, they could do both. So, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, they really could go either way, but I still am, as we've talked about ad nauseum already now, I'm pretty sure Pac-Man's going to be here. So I think it makes a ton of sense for Pac-Man to be a character and have, this assist trophy, or this Namco flag thing, be their version of the assist trophy. Alright, moving on, we have something that you actually predicted before, being the beehive from Animal Crossing. Now, as I recall, you predicted it being something that Isabelle may throw out, as she's an assist trophy here, and that very well may still be the case, based on, like, Chansey in previous games, who would throw an egg, which is something that I think could appear as a separate weapon as well. So the beehive here, we only see in the pictures, but I have a feeling it's going to be something that, I think, as you said before, that you throw at an enemy, the bees come out and chase them around.
Yeah, it would make sense to work like that. I actually, now that I've seen Isabelle in action, I don't think she'll throw beehives, because I was under the assumption that she would work like Chansey, where she just randomly throws out fruit for people to collect. But as we saw in the, as we pointed out in the secrets analysis, she is specifically throwing fruit to a character, and only that character. So it would be kind of like, unless she decides to be very vengeful, which is kind of out of character for her, I don't see her throwing a beehive specifically at the person who summoned her. That would be kind of weird. But the beehive in general being in the game it makes a ton of sense as far as an item.
Yeah, well, she did the beehive thing. I can see it being like an accident type thing, maybe. I don't know how. Why would she have a beehive on her? But I could see, I could see them incorporate something like that, like her throwing it out, then freaking out afterward, like, oh crap, I just threw out a beehive.
Yeah, it could be. As far as how the beehive would actually work, I guess, the initial hit from actually getting hit by the hive, and they could even maybe give it a random thing where sometimes the bees will appear, maybe it's an empty nest, and other times they'll just surround you and maybe keep you immobile as they sting you.
Yeah, I could see that being the case. Next up we have the Steel Diver, which appears to be a gun that shoots out little torpedoes that start off kind of slow, then immediately pick up speed on their way to the target, which is, whatever's in front of it. Which, this whole thing is just kind of hilarious to me, because it's literally a submarine in the shape of a gun. Like, you're holding a handle, and then the part that fires is a submarine itself. I just think it's brilliant, like, as a weapon.
It is kind of just funny, because when I look at that thing, I think, oh, it's a water gun, and
right.
Nope, it fires torpedoes. I mean, what else would you do with Steel Diver, really? I mean, I guess you could have the torpedoes from it, but this is just a whole lot more fun to just have, the submarine on the gun shooting torpedoes, and even being a little different. Like, we never really seen, usually, like, when you fire projectiles or gun-based weapons, it's just a consistent rate of fire. Here, it's a little bit trickier. You can, throw off your opponents if they're not used to the speed increase.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. But you mentioned one interesting thing there about what else could you do with Steel Diver. I actually think it could make for a pretty awesome level now that I think about it. Like, what if the level actually takes place underwater, on top of a submarine, or maybe, several different passing submarines. Maybe you hop between them. And then every once in a while, like, it actually surfaces. And of course, the battling dynamics would be different. You would jump slower underwater, whereas above water, you would jump like you do normally.
It could be very interesting. I think it would be much more often above water than below water if there was a level like that, just because I don't think people would enjoy being underwater that much and having their physics messed with, but it could make for something interesting along those lines.
Now, speaking of vehicle-based weapons, we get a look at a new one here, being the Hocotate ship from Pikmin. Now, the really interesting thing about this is this was actually Captain Olimar's final smash in the previous Smash Brothers game, where it fly into the air and then crash back into the ground. And it appears to function very similarly here, except just on a slightly smaller scale, where it no longer, like, destroys everything on the screen. But it appears to be basically the same thing, where it flies up and it'll actually spear anyone in the way. And then it crashes back into the ground and explodes. So it looks to me like it'll be a pretty fun weapon to use.
Yeah, the thing that I wasn't expecting was how it just, if it catches somebody in the air, it brings them along with it, just doing constant damage. Now, the thing that's interesting here is that we didn't see that when it goes up, them basically getting taken off the map. They get crashed back down with it, or actually we just see it crash back down and those guys are already down there with it. So maybe they can get off at some point. I'm not sure. But if it could actually do a 2-point attack where it spears somebody on the way up, takes them off map that way, and then crashes on somebody else on the way down and sends them flying, it could actually be really devastatingly used if done correctly.
That would be vicious. Wow.
The thing we didn't see, though, is how exactly it works. We see like how it gets initiated. We see it going up and go down, but we never seen anybody actually use it. So when you use it, do you just fly directly up, or how would it work like that? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, you got me.
I'll tell you what I wasn't expecting is that'd be the rocket belt from Pilot Wings, which I never really played that series before, but kind of recognize it because it's a flying type thing. But it's something that's purely used for recovery, which I don't think we've ever seen that in an item before, where it's like that's its main use, because I don't see any offensive capabilities on this thing. Do you?
Yeah, like unless the jets can damage someone directly below it, but they don't seem to be that big. The flames don't extend that far, so that does seem unlikely. So yeah, it looks like it really is just a recovery item. Now in the direct, you see Lil Mac using it, and it looks like he kind of moderates. He's very careful, very deliberate with how he uses it to get back to the platform, which suggests to me that maybe it's, it has gasoline, a certain amount of fuel that you burn through if you use it too much.
It seems to be the case, because, that's how else would you really control it otherwise? So it's basically, I believe, once you pick it up, you just use it either you're using the A button to fire it, or maybe you can still attack while you're wearing it, and you use the jump button, and that just replaces it that way. Mm-hmm. And I guess I doubt there's a fuel indicator, but you just sort of have to be careful with how much you use it before it runs out.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen an item quite like this before, where it seems to be purely for recovery purposes. I can see that being really important to get a hold of,
especially for Mac.
Yes. Oh, that's a great point, because we already know his recovery sucks. So it is interesting that they pair that with him in this direct, which really just goes to further show how important this item can be. So now I wonder if it can maybe be knocked off of you by other people, and maybe will it go flying off then, or maybe they can pick it up themselves and use it as their own recovery.
I'm not sure. If it did fly off, it'd be work kind of like Diddy Kong's barrel jetpack.
Right.
So I don't think it'll. I have a feeling it won't do that because it just doesn't look quite as explosive as all that. So it might just fall off, and other people can pick it up, as you said. That'd be my best guess. So it's funny you said that we've never seen that before because we have so many freaking returning items.
It's nuts.
From the past games. I mean, honestly, we'd be here forever if we wanted to talk about them all. We're going to just cover some of the big ones that we think are really worth talking about. The funny thing is, it's actually easier to talk about what hasn't been announced.
Yeah, that actually would be a smarter way of doing it.
You've seen all the pictures, you've seen all the ones announced, but the three that we think are the most important to talk about are actually, first of all, the Dragoon, which we saw in your analysis, Andre. Mm-hmm. We spotted one of the pieces of the Dragoon, meaning that it is back and it looks to work exactly the same.
Right, where you'll collect all three of the pieces before anyone else, and then you'll get a ship that you can aim on the screen to try and take out, anyone in his flight path.
And it would actually replace the Smash Ball as the special item for that round. It was sort of random whether the Dragoon or the Smash Ball would come back. But, I mean, were you a fan of the Dragoon?
I was. I thought it was a lot of fun. And, that thing was actually surprisingly difficult to get a hold of, especially in, 4-player brawls where the pieces would be spread among, 4 different people. I thought it was cool, and it was pretty rare in just how often people assembled the damn thing. And plus, the thing is a callback to Kirby Air Ride, which I love on principle. So,
yeah, I mean, it's really can be really devastating if you know how to use it. But aiming the thing, I had a hell of a time aiming that damn thing and just making sure it hit. So almost in some ways was more balanced than some of the final smashes that would be available in Brawl.
Right.
Overall, I'm just glad to see it back. I mean, it was a fun little item. It's definitely a different pace.
I am too.
Now, here's an interesting one. What do you think about the Team Healer being back?
So, funny story. I have played the crap out of every Smash Brothers game. I mean, don't get me wrong, my memory is not perfect on every aspect of them because it's been, quite a while since I've played some of them. I know those games pretty darn well. I had no idea what the Team Healer was when I first saw this. I had never seen it before because I never played team battles. That's something I don't think I might have played around with it maybe once or twice before, but for the most part, something we didn't. It's just something my friend group didn't bother with. So I was surprised to see this was actually a thing.
Yeah, my friend group was the same way. We never really did team battles. It was just more fun to do, all-out brawls and enjoy the craziness that way. I mean, I remember doing a couple team battles, but that was mostly with Melee, ironically enough. I remember just doing it that way just to change things up and do it that way. And the funny thing is, we would only really do it with no items. So I don't think I ever used it in Brawl, but I remember seeing the item, but I just never used it before. So when we first saw it, we were like, what the hell is that? Right. The only reason we're really talking about it is it does confirm, well, team battles are back. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like either of us will be using it much, but for those who really like the team battle aspect, there you go. Now,
another item that's coming back, except the one that I actually care about, is the green shell, which has historically always been one of my favorite weapons. I always just thought it was a ton of fun to, either throw that thing or have it slide across the arena, and just have it basically destroy whoever it comes into contact with. Now, the interesting thing, though, is I'm wondering, is a red shell going to come back after not being in Brawl? And the funny thing is this is something you actually noticed, and it's something I didn't even realize was missing from Brawl, even though I remember loving the item in the previous 2 Smash Brothers games.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking through, I could have swore the red shell was in Brawl, but then we were looking through the items list, and it's no, it really wasn't. Yep. And the funny thing is, you don't notice it, but when you do notice it, you kind of miss it, because there was just something chaotic about the red shell and how devastating it would be. You get on a single platform, and it'll cause some havoc. And even just in Final Destination, getting that thing off, it would cause some trouble on there. So it was kind of just added to the chaotic fun.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it. I mean, personally, I kind of hope it comes back.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the red shells, it totally changed the landscape, basically, in that it encouraged people to stay off that platform. So in effect, it changed how every battle, or how the battle was played, from that point on, for as long as it lasted. I might be overplaying its role a little bit, but it had a pretty big influence on the battle. I thought it was cool. So I really do hope it's back. And now that the blue shell is here as well, I think that might support the idea that that will be back as well. You get the whole trifecta there going on.
Yeah, it'd be fun. But yeah, basically, if you can think of an item in Brawl and any of the other games, Smash Brothers games, they're in there except for 4. The only items that have not been announced yet that were in previous Smash Brothers games are the cloaking device, the fan, the party ball, and the cracker launcher. Now we could also throw in the CDs and stickers from Brawl, but I mean, maybe the CDs will come back. I kind of hope not, because I just want to have all the music available right away. And did anybody really like the stickers?
No.
They were kind of cool, but they weren't as fun to collect to me as the trophies. So we're just going to discount those guys. But yeah, the cloaking, the fan, the party ball, and the cracker launcher. What do you think about those 4?
I like the cracker launcher. I thought that was actually a really fun weapon. And I also love the fan. Like, I've been a big fan of the fan. I didn't mean to say that, by the way. Going back to the very first Smash Brothers game. Because that is, like, probably the ultimate troll weapon. Where you just stand there smacking them in the face with this low-powered weapon. But it holds them in place, basically. Which makes it really difficult to escape. And also like the fact that when you actually threw the fan at someone, it would cause them to fly pretty high up into the air. At least in the first Smash Brothers game. I can't remember exactly if it did the same thing in subsequent ones. But, I really hope that one comes back, because I really did enjoy that one.
No, I totally agree with you, because the cracker launcher was fun to get used. It was just kind of different, almost like a bazooka type weapon, almost, because just going everywhere and doing larger blasts. And I think everybody loves the fan. If it doesn't show up, I think people will be upset, but I'm pretty sure we can say the fan will be in the game.
Yeah, I mean, especially based on how many items from Brawl are coming back here, being almost all of them. And who knows, may be all of them. And that's a crazy thing to me, is just how many items are in this game. Considering Brawl already had a ton of items, most of them are back for sure. And how many new items we already know about. Like, I'm almost wondering, is there anything left they haven't shown off? Or rather, is there much left to be shown off? Like, how many more could there be?
When it comes to just plain items, I guess we might get a few here and there as far as just new ones. And of course, the remaining unannounced ones, because the only one I really can't see coming back is the cloaking device, because I didn't like that. I mean, yeah, it gave you invisibility, but you couldn't keep track of yourself, and if you had names on, it didn't do crap for you anyway.
Right.
I guess the mystery when it comes to the items is who the other assist trophies and Pokemon will be, and we'll get to those discussions at a later time. But as far as just items, you didn't realize it at first looking at the whole list, but as you go through and start matching them up, we're only missing a couple as far as classic items, and that's kind of awesome to me that nothing really got cut.
Yeah, it seems like they are really in almost every aspect of this game, from what I can tell, like trying to appease almost everyone. Whether it's the characters that are here, some of the game mechanics, like having the different online modes, having different versions of Final Destination. It really does seem like they're going all out to appease as many people as possible. Of course, they won't appease everyone. That's impossible. But it really does seem like, yeah, they're doing a lot here just by being so inclusive with just how many things are on offer. I'll be curious to see if there's many items left to be shown off. I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen like 95% of them at least at this point.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And, I'm all for it.
Alright, I think that finally wraps up our item discussion. Geez, there was a lot to talk about. So thanks guys for watching. If you liked our discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. You can find links to them in the description below, which is a good way to keep up to date with everything we post, including all of our Smash covers, and we're still not done, there's still more coming. So stay tuned for all of that. And of course, keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more on Smash Brothers and other things gaming as well. Alright, thanks guys. Bye.